All right, this is Good Medicine, and I'm here in St. Louis in Forest Park at the Confederate Monument. That has been a lot of controversy lately. If you can zoom in now on that for me real quick, real please. Okay, this by the news media, this issue has been framed in the terms of race, and what I want to do is kind of step outside that box, outside this racial controversy, and look at this from like what I would consider a little different angle. Um, and so I think I really need to start with the term liberalism. Um, Liberalism and conservatism are what I would call moving targets. So I tend to use the terms today's liberals and today's conservatives. So what you would think of as a conservative or liberal 40, 50, even 30 years ago is something different today, and it will be something different tomorrow. Um, so when we think about traditional conservatism from the 1700s, 1800s, what we have is you think of natural rights, freedom of speech, um, let's say freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, a democracy, voting rights, so on and so forth. And if we fast forward to today, what we have is what I call Generation Snowflake, which we see at a lot of these protests. They were here at a protest at this monument. They were at the Trump protest. They tend to be very aggressive, violent, in my opinion, incoherent. And the real key issue here is really what I want to address is they want to censor, remove, and ban anything they find offensive or objectionable. And that brings us to this monument here because some people find it objectionable. Now, if you ask anybody about this monument, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. Let's say we particularly ask white Southerners, they would have a maybe more favorable opinion of it. Blacks, African Americans would have a negative opinion of this. And so the thing is, who gets to determine what a symbol means? Like a cross. If you ask the Jehovah's Witnesses what a cross means, they find it as idolatry. Rappers may see it simply as bling. A lot of Christians may see it as a religious symbol. So that is open to interpretation. And what I'm really concerned about here is that there's this kind of creep where we started with political correctness, where when I grew up, the term black was simply an adjective. Now it's a term that you may want to avoid because some people may be offended by it, so you use the term African American. And so we went from, you can't say the mailman, you got to say the letter carrier, because God forbid that would offend somebody. And so now we've creeped into the public domain where some people are offended by the Confederate monument, so it's got to be removed. And the problem here is that it's creeping into like what I consider more of a totalitarianism, where certain people get to determine what is acceptable and what is not. If we go to Canada or Europe, we can see a situation where people can be prosecuted for saying the wrong thing, for hate speech, and so on. I particularly am an advocate of what you call unlimited free speech. It means that you would have the right to offend people. The people that come out here and protested this are the very same people that will take the American flag, drag it around the ground, step on it, spit on it, burn it, offend a lot of people like myself, and that's okay. But God forbid if they're offended by a Confederate monument, and we have a whole class of politicians here that are pandering to this group. And like I said, it's not going to stop with the Confederate monument. Are they going to ban Shakespeare or what? I remember when I was in high school, there was a particularly very religious woman who was offended by The Catcher in the Rye because it mentioned some words she didn't like. So she was up there at the high school wanting that particular book banned from the high school. And so now today with Generation Snowflake, we have the new Puritanism that they want to ban that which they find objectionable or they dislike. And so this is really, to me, that's more the issue than trying to frame it in the box of race, which of course is a hot button issue which sells on the news media and so on. And so that's kind of my stance on it. I got someone here I just met. His name's John. John, if you come on over here, and he would like to give you maybe his perspective on it. So, John, what do you think of all this?
You know, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that they're making such a big issue out of this. And this monument, I'm 37 years old. This monument has been here for as long as I can remember. I think, you know, as long as I've been alive, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I think that there are a lot of bigger issues with race in our city that are a lot more important than this particular monument. So I think it's really kind of a distraction. I mean, I think it is unfortunate that some people are upset by it, but you know, there are other things that upset other people, and you know, we live with that. You know, you can't expect the government to remove everything that you find exceptional. You don't have to come walk by and see it. You know, I don't think it's. You know, there is. You know, I think there are some limits on free speech. I think, you know, certain things are intimidating, and you know, and we have laws to prevent that. But you know, in particular, I think that this, you know, the controversy around this monument is in some ways, you know, a lot of ways distracting from the more important issues we have with, you know, our local government. You know, but I do generally agree that the idea that, you know, if people don't agree with me, I think I support that, you know, they have their right to have their piece, and I can say my piece, and that's, you know, our democracy doesn't work if both sides don't recognize that people with ideas differently to you still have a right to voice those ideas.
So you would agree with the Greek ideal that we could agree to disagree without necessarily?
Yeah, I think that's very important. You know, I think it was Patrick Henry that said, you know, I might disagree with you, but I will fight to the death, you know, your ability to speak your opinion, even if I don't agree with that opinion. That's really, I think, what our founders want in our democracy. And so I think that, you know, I think that in general, most Americans would agree with that. You know, most people are not radical. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, unfortunately, the way our politics are going now, the people that are in office are the very extremes and the most motivated, and we need that, the average American needs to kind of take government back and say, look, most of us are not, you know, extremely liberal, extremely conservative. We want, you know, jobs, and we want a government that works for us. And, you know, I think most people inherently are not racist, but we need to kind of work together as a community, because that's what's holding us back.
Yeah, and your father, you said, is of Chinese origin?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think of my comment that this is kind of a creep where we went from political correctness now to removing monuments to possibly the banning and removing of other things that particular groups or segments find objectionable? Do you think that is kind of the path we're going on?
You know, I think that I think there has been some of that. Hopefully it won't continue that way. I mean, I think that, especially, you know, you hear a lot about this on college campuses and whatnot, and the idea that, you know, this person doesn't agree with our viewpoint, so we're gonna have a protest instead of allowing them to have their say, and we're gonna argue against that. I think that, you know, I think that's a problem. You know, I mean, I think that if you want to combat someone's ideas, you need to combat them with your own better ideas, not, you know, staging a protest and not trying to shout them down and be louder than them. You know, if we disagree, you know, my goal shouldn't be to be louder than you and to shut you up. I should just have a better idea and spread it around and win the people to my side.
So it's fighting free speech with more free speech. Yeah, so that's kind of my perspective on it. Our cameraman there, Dan, did you have any comments on it real quick or anything?
We're going to turn the camera around here?
I'm going to turn them off. You guys said it very well.
Well, okay. No,
so hug and make friends, shake hands. Good. There you go. Very good.
Right.
It's
right.
bye.